Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk to y'all about what exactly happens behind the scenes when I am preparing for a major travel convention. So, this year I have really gone above and beyond with my con circuit schedule. Unfortunately, that is going to be put on hold as of right now for 2026 due to my financial situation with being laid off in March of this year. However, the con circuit that I have had for 2025 was already paid for. So that is the nature of these events, is that you pay up front for the table fees, booth fees, event fees, whatever you want to call them. You have to pay for them basically when you sign up. So that's way in advance, anywhere from 6 months to over a year in advance. And then a lot of times with the hotel blocks, you also have to pay for those up front. So for a lot of these events, this was a lot of upfront costs that I had already spent. So there was no point in canceling them. However, moving forward with the expenses that I would have put forward for 2026, I'm not able to afford those right now. So 2026 is very much up in the air. But for this year, 2025, I did have two major travel events, one to New Orleans and the most recent one to Salem. And while yes, I did go to Kansas City, I don't consider that as much of a hike because it's an 8-hour drive. And while that is a really long drive and it's not an event that I can just do in a day, it's still close enough that I don't consider it to be like a big out of state event the way that New Orleans and Salem were. To give some perspective on those two events, I had 2 full days of driving each way. So a total of 4 days of driving for a weekend event. For New Orleans, I was only able to sign up for 1 day, Sunday, and that wasn't by my choice. That was just what was available. Whereas for Salem, I was able to do Saturday and Sunday. So for New Orleans, I was literally driving for 4 days for 1 day to actually do the event. And then for Salem, I was driving 4 days to do 2 days for the actual event. Now, I did make these trips worthwhile in that I also explored the cities and did a lot of photo and video content of my experiences there, so that it wasn't just all I'm seeing is the inside of a hotel and that's it. I actually went out and explored the city to make going all that way worthwhile. But there's a lot that goes into doing big events like this, and a lot of times people don't realize all of the nitty-gritty details that are going to go into doing the event itself, traveling to and from the event, and then also all the prep that you have to do on the front end and the back end to make everything go smoothly. So for both of these events, I had to plan for that I was going to have a total of 4 days of travel. So that meant that I was going to have to schedule halfway point hotels to be able to stay at on my way to the event and then on my way back home for both of them. And a big part of that is literally mapping out where am I going to be and where is the halfway point. So for driving to and from New Orleans, Memphis, Tennessee was the halfway point. And part of what I did with choosing my halfway points was I also wanted to make sure that the location that I was choosing was, 1, safe, and then 2, was also a more like larger city and not just in the middle of nowhere, because I also wanted to make sure that there was stuff around it so that for dinner and stuff I could order food and not have to worry about having like no options to choose from. So for New Orleans, I stayed in a Memphis hotel on the way there and back, and I kind of messed up with that. I had 2 different hotels for that because I booked one, and then when I booked the one for the way home, I realized there was a cheaper option, so then I went with that one. So obviously in the future, when I can afford it again and I do the New Orleans event again, I will be staying at that cheaper hotel because it was just as good, it was just as safe, it was just significantly cheaper. And then with Salem, I had the halfway point of this like town outside of Akron, Ohio. It was called Canton, Ohio, and it had plenty of stuff around it, and it was right off the highway. So it was very much, one of those little like highway hub sort of places. So it was very safe. The hotel was really nice. It had everything that I needed and was perfect for being able to get back on the road. Because that's also part of what I do with scheduling these halfway point hotels, is that I make sure that it is close by food, it is close by coffee, and it is close by a gas station, or multiple gas stations, even better, so that I don't have to worry about I'm driving all the way out to the boonies and there's nothing around and all that. It's like, no, I want to be able to just pull right off the highway. It's right there. I have everything I need. And then when I wake up in the morning, pack the car, go get breakfast, go get gas, and get right back on the road. I don't want to have to like drive in and out of the boonies to get where I'm going. That's just a waste of time. It's a waste of effort. And plus, I'm always very paranoid about keeping track of my gas gauge. So one of the things that I learned from way back in the day, back when I used to drive cross country for my modeling tours, is that I don't let the gas tank go past half a tank. And the reason for that is that you never know what can happen. And I have several times in my life gotten to the point where my car is screaming at me that it's on E, and I'm really worried, like, am I going to make it to a gas station in time? And that is not a game that you want to play when you are on the road for literally like 4 whole days. That is not something you want to have to worry about. So it's basically once it gets close to half a tank, that's when I start looking around and being like, okay, where's a nearby gas station that I can pull into and I can refuel? Because sometimes, especially when you're driving literally in the middle of nowhere, it can be a long time before there's another gas station, just period. Not even like, oh, I want a nicer gas station, I want a cheaper gas station, blah, blah, just period at all, anywhere. And you can sometimes get pretty close to that 1/4 of a tank point before you find another gas station, and that's really scary. So that's one of the things that I do to make sure that I stay safe and that my journey is stress-free, that I don't have to worry about, oh, how far are we getting to E? Not even a part of my journey. I make sure that that is not a worry that I have to have. And while that does mean that I have to stop more frequently, it also enables me to be a bit smarter about my stops. So I look at the gas gauge, I look at the time, and I kind of figure out, okay, it's going to be about this much longer probably by the time that I'm going to have to go get gas. How about, because on GPS now they have it where you can be like search nearby for gas stations, search nearby for food, whatever you want. So that's when I start searching and being like, okay, I would really rather stop at one of their called service areas. So it's like one of those really nice buildings where they have like the Starbucks and the Sbarro and Burger King and like other places. They have the nice bathrooms where they're like actually kept up, and there's lots of other people, so it's populated, so you don't have to worry about, you just being alone in a scary place. And they have gas stations. Those are my ideal number one choice that I choose whenever I have to pull over, because then I can go pee and I can get gas at the same time. Typically, I can't also get food at the same time just because they usually only have like fast food kind of places, and that's not the kind of food that I want to eat, just because unfortunately I have digestive issues, and the last thing you want to do as a person with digestive issues is eat something that is going to like make your insides unhappy when you're in a car for literally like 12 hours. That's a bad choice. It's a bad choice. So I have to go out of my way a lot of times with making sure that I figure out where a safe food place is, but that's not as big of a deal as worrying about going to the bathroom and getting gas. And so that's usually what I do with that. And sometimes you do need to hit up the gas station before there's going to be another rest area like that where you can go to the bathroom, which means more stops. But at the end of the day, the way that I plan this out is that I'm not pulling in on the day of with these big events. It's I'm going to get to the hotel whenever I get there and unload and all that and go to bed. And then the event is either the day after that or even the day after that. And that way I don't have the pressure of having like a ticking clock that I'm like, oh, I have to get there by this time in order to be able to do the event or do the whatever. I have it where it's like, nope, today's driving day. Driving is all we're worrying about today. We don't have to worry about anything else. We are just getting to our destination. And that's also part of what really helps with my stress with doing these events, is planning them out that way. And I guess that's kind of the trade-off with it. Really, like, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it really sucks that I got laid off earlier this year. Unfortunately, I was part of the mass layoffs and there was nothing I could do, and the layoffs had nothing to do with me. And so that completely destroyed my life financially, to be frank. But But it also means that I don't have to worry about like taking time off of work or worrying about, am I taking too many days, or is there going to be an emergency while I'm in the middle of driving and somebody's going to expect me to like pull off the highway and do I don't know what online. That is the trade-off that I also didn't have to worry about, that I had all these days that I was just like, yep, I'm MIA, woo, you know, because it's like I'm unemployed, nobody cares what I'm doing right now, yay. So there was that trade-off that I did have the time to be able to take my time with doing these events. So with both events, New Orleans and Salem, I did these events for the same amount of time. And I felt like this was really the sweet spot for doing these events going forward in the future, because once I started getting to the last day of the trip, I was really starting to lose my marbles. And I really do remember that from doing my modeling tours, and those were way longer than like the week that I did these events for. Out west, all the way driving out to California, that was usually about 20 to 30 days that tour would last. And oh boy, y'all, my sanity by the end of that tour was just gone. Just woo. I don't think 37-year-old me could do a 20-30 day tour ever again. I don't have the anything for that. I don't have the mental capacity for that anymore. I don't have the endurance for it anymore. I don't have the anything for that anymore. That was 20-something-year-old me's problem. I'm old now. But this week-long thing was really the sweet spot, and I think that was really perfect, which also unfortunately influences the fact that if I do get to a position again where I'm able to finance these kind of large-scale events, I probably won't be doing stuff on the West Coast just because it is so far away, even though I do know that they do have events in California and in Las Vegas and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think I have it in me to drive that far. Those circumstances might change in the future, but as of right now, from what I experienced doing these two events, no. No, I can't. So with both events, I started out driving on Wednesday. So that meant that backing it up further, on Tuesday, I packed the car so that then Wednesday I was just ready to go. So backing it up all the way to Tuesday is pack the car day. And then backing it up further from that, because the amount of time on both ends of doing the actual event is just so far out that so many people don't realize that. And being able to back that scope out this far is what really makes it so that doing these events is not so overwhelming, and so that you can make sure that everything is taken care of so you're not stressing about what you're coming home to. And so for the week before I was going to leave, I made sure I had a list of these are all of my time-sensitive tasks and projects that I need to have done before I have to leave for this event. And so I planned it all out and made sure that I was like, okay, we are going to do all these tasks that are time sensitive that need to be done before we leave, as well as I made sure that I also made time to work on my larger projects that we just got to chug along on. Make sure I make some time for that too, so that I don't come home to I haven't done anything in like 3 weeks kind of thing, because that's also bad. So just planning out all of that a week before all of this was a lot, and it was very stressful, y'all. And I was pretty much like not doing anything else. I was pretty much just shoving everything in that I needed to do. It was very stressful. It was very go, go, go. I was very, very tired. So that meant that I was starting off the week before this event very, very tired. And I knew this, and this is just how I live my life. This is why in one of my other videos, I talk about how during my modeling days, I had a problem with just not sleeping and not giving myself breaks and just go, go, go. And that's why I have a heart condition now. I damaged my heart with lack of sleep, stress, and caffeine, like severe caffeine addiction abuse. So yeah. And I have to be more careful now. But it was basically, I recognized that I'm like, this chunk of time, it's going to be hell. But around that, we're going to take the time to be nice to ourselves and get rest and not be a crazy person. So there's that. We're making progress. We're making progress on being nice to ourselves. So for that week, that was the plan. And I made it, y'all. It was by the skin of my teeth. I was working all the way up to Monday, making sure I got everything done. Also making sure that I had everything that I needed. So do I need to go to the store and get snacks and food and things so that I can have stuff in the car, so that I can have stuff in the hotel, so that I can bring stuff with me to the event, all that kind of stuff, just to have food on hand, because I do have hypoglycemia, which means that if my blood sugar dips too low, like my body starts shutting down. Like the whole like keto diet. Keto is short for ketosis. And if you are a person that has hypoglycemia, that is a potential death sentence. Like, it's basically, I need to raise my blood sugar now, otherwise, like, it is go to the hospital. Always having food on hand is also really important for doing these events, and making sure I have stuff that's going to fulfill the test, that doesn't need a fridge, that can sit out and it's not going to go bad. So things like nuts and chips and snack bars and granola, all that kind of stuff, all that like dry food, shelf safe stuff. Bagels are an option that I really love bringing with me to these events because they're good for like the whole week, and they're really high calorie, dense, and they're good, easy sugar options that won't spike my blood sugar because they're not just like sugar, but it's a complex sugar. So all of that I bring to my events to make sure that I'm staying safe. That's along with, do I have all of the items do I need? Do I have all of my book inventory? Do I have all the signage that I want? Do I have enough business cards? Did I have to place an order? And that's even planning way further out than a week before. That's usually like a month at the shortest amount of time. A month before is making sure that your book inventory arrives in time, making sure your business cards arrive in time, making sure your signage arrives in time. And that's actually an item that I had to do after coming back from Salem, is that unfortunately the last event that Neil and I did together, the Bookworm Ball, and I drove first back to his place in Indiana before driving back here to Chicago. Unfortunately, he doesn't live in the best location in that it's government housing, so there's some wackadoo people that live there. And for whatever reason, it possessed them to steal the magnetic sign off of my Jeep. So I have one for me and I have one for Neil, and for some reason they stole his. I don't know what you're going to do with that. It's a giant, like it's the size of a car door, magnet of his logo with his QR code. And I'm like, what on God's green earth do you need that for? What are you going to do with that? They probably don't know. So I had to order a new one to make sure it's here in time for when we go to the Enchanted Kingdom Ball. And I didn't end up driving with just my logo on my car to Salem just because it felt like it would be weirdly off balance having it on just one car door and not the other, as well as like now I'm paranoid. So I just didn't want to take that risk, and I was like, we're just gonna not have signage on our car for this event, and it's fine. But that was the thing, is that I have to make sure that I buy this now so that it arrives by the time that we do our next event, which consequently is the last event that we are going to be doing for 2025, and it is our biggest event of this year. I'm very excited for it, and we're in the midst of planning that and doing all of this, backing up to the day and all that jazz. Same thing. Making sure that you have all those components is so important, because there have been several events that I've gone to where the authors ordered their book inventory or ordered business cards or signage or whatever have you at the last minute, and then it didn't arrive in time. And there is nothing worse than doing that, than being like, I am dependent on these items getting here in time, and then they don't. And my biggest word of advice for y'all, especially if you are a self-published author and you are ordering from something like Amazon or Ingram or whatever, they will send your stuff slow. It will get there way slower than you think it will. So make sure that you order your new book inventory at least a month in advance. As I always tell people, books don't go bad, so you can just order them as far in advance as you want and just have them sit somewhere in your house. It'll look crazy for that amount of time and you can deal. That's what I do. But they can just sit there and they don't go bad, and you don't have to do anything with them until the event comes. And it's just so much easier and so much less stressful if you just have the inventory sitting around on hand than playing this game of trying to get them at the last possible minute and then hoping they arrive in time. There's just no reason for that kind of stress. And I know that book inventory is expensive. It's a really big, expensive upfront cost for doing these events. And for a lot of people, it's playing that game of giving up, or, for that paycheck that you need. And my advice to that is plan it out sooner than the event. Plan it out sooner than that. Is whether you have to save up a little bit out of each paycheck, or it's you just have to rearrange what you're going to do a month before the event or 2 months before the event, whatever you need to do. Make sure you do that big expense way before the event. Don't do it 2 weeks before because there's a big chance they won't get there in time. And don't do it a week before because they absolutely will not get there in time. Period. End of sentence. I see so many people that do that a week or even worse, like a few days before. They're not going to get there. Not only that, if you're doing that and then you're going to try to pay the extra money for them to be expedited, do you know how much more expensive that is? It just makes so much more financial sense and time sense and stress. Do it as far in advance as you can. Just as I just got home from Salem. Next event isn't until November. I am to wait until I get another payment for a freelance gig that I'm doing, and then I'm going to buy my book inventory, even though that will be effectively 2 months out from the Enchanted Kingdom ball. But then they're going to arrive, and I can inventory them and price them, and then I don't have to worry about it. Don't have to worry about it at all. And that's the way that I roll, we're just going to get these costs done front as soon as we're able to afford them, and then just boop, don't have to worry about it. I highly recommend using that strategy. It just makes everything so much easier, and you're not doing stuff at the last minute, and you're not dependent on the mail system cooperating with whatever nightmare scenario you've created for yourself. So absolutely make sure your inventory is ordered far in advance, your signage, your business cards, whatever. Just anything that requires shipping to you, anything that you can't physically go to a store and pick up yourself. Give yourself plenty of time for it to arrive. And that's the other thing with physically going to a store too, is be prepared for the store might be sold out of a thing. So also make sure you don't do that like the day of, the morning of, unless obviously emergencies happen, things break, things go missing, things get stolen, whatever, and there's nothing you can do about that. But if it's a thing that you planned, don't do that stuff at the last minute, such as I have over the years been building up my booth. And I've been adding more tables to the setup as I've gone, and now we're at the perfect size for a 10-foot by 10-foot booth with our tables. And I never left it at the last minute for the tables that I needed to buy for each iteration of the setup. I did that well in advance, whether it was a month or 2 months or however many months in advance that I would go to the store to pick up those card tables and then throw them in my car and drive home with them and whatever. I still did that way in advance. I didn't wait until like the day before or the day of an event to go pick up a table. Doing yourself that favor, give yourself enough time to be able to get everything done, get everything shipped to you, insert here whatever disaster you might have to deal with. And that's another one of the things that people don't always think about when they're doing these events, is doing book inventory. That is a really important thing that you want to do for your sanity, for your finances, and for your taxes at the end of the year. It's important to keep track of all these records. So before doing the event, I sit down and I make sure that I have enough of all of the book inventory that I think that I need in order to make sure that I don't sell out. Because as fun as it is to sell out of stuff, it really sucks when you have people come up to your booth and they want to buy something and you don't have anything. And that's something that happened to one of the authors that I was booth neighbors with at Salem, is she sold out of a lot of stuff on Saturday. And so she had very limited stock of stuff for Sunday, and she had a lot of people asking, oh, I really want this, and it's like, I'm sorry, it's already sold out. Which, I mean, amazing for her that she sold out of all this stuff so fast. I mean, dream come true, honestly. However, I'm the kind of person where I like to make sure I have way more inventory than I imagine I'm going to sell at that event, so that in the off chance that something is wildly popular for whatever reason, I will have enough to make it through the event, as well as it's good to have way extra inventory, because then if you have events that are really close together, you don't have to play that game of worrying about this shipment isn't going to get here in time and I don't have any more copies of this book. That at least you'll have that spillover amount. It's not going to be enough, but at least it's something. And so that's part of my strategy with that too, because again, books don't go bad. you can just have them hang out in your house until your next event, and it doesn't hurt anything. So that's also part of my strategy, is have way more inventory on hand than I could possibly sell at that event, so that then I have the spillover for the next event. And then pricing, whether you're the kind of person like me where you put the price directly on the books themselves, or you have cute little signs to let people know what the prices are of your books, make sure you have external pricing, meaning that you have some sort of indication so that people who walk up to your booth can immediately see what the prices are without them having to ask you. Because a lot of times there are people, whether they're shy or they're embarrassed or whatever, won't be motivated to ask you how much a book is. And that can be the difference between making a sale or not making a sale, is there are a lot of people who will want to just look at the price, be able to do calculations in their head, and then decide what they want to do, that they're not going to want to ask you, because then they run the risk of being embarrassed and like being surprised that the book is more than they thought it was, or whatever. So make sure that you also plan ahead. Make sure that you know what you want to price your books at. Make sure that you have that signage to indicate what the prices are for your books, and also for your own sanity, because I do that all the time at the conventions. I don't have the prices memorized. I have over 30 titles, y'all. There's no way that I'm going to remember how much each book is. And so it's really easy for me having the prices physically on the books. Then when somebody decides, okay, I'm going to buy this book, or even more importantly, when they buy multiple books, I put them all in a stack in front of me so that I can add it all up right there. Each price is on each book. Add it all up, make sure it's exactly the price that I need to charge them so that everybody's happy and I don't make any mistakes. It's also important to do that because it's very easy to lose track of sales as the event goes on. It can get very chaotic. So having those point of references for yourself and for your customers is so important. And then also during the event, making sure that you can track those purchases. So I have an app on my phone where I keep track of all of my expenses on there, not just for events, but like literally everything. It's my budgeting app where I put in like my book inventory, my phone bill, literally everything in there so that it's all in one place. And so that as book sales happen, I can enter in there each individual book that I sold, so that then later on I have that for my documentation. And then of course, after the fact, you want to have documentation for your taxes to be able to be like, I did this event, I had these expenses at this event, I made these sales at the event, blah, blah, blah. All that fun tax season stuff. It's best if you do it as you go than having to try to remember all this stuff at the last minute. Document everything as you go. Update your tax information as you go. It will be so much easier once you actually get to April and you have to do taxes. Like, do not leave that to the last minute. Do it as you go so that you don't have to sit there and try to remember. Have the documentation to back it up in case you make a mistake. It's good to have information in multiple places. So that's also one of the things that I do, is I make time to make sure that I have all this documentation done before, during, and after. So then going back to Tuesday, our magical day of packing up the car. So that is the day where I pack up all the things that are safe to have in the car overnight. So all the tables, all the tablecloths, all the books, just all of that stuff. Obviously, I don't want to have stuff like, I don't want to have the food in the car. I don't want to have my toiletries in the car, especially with how hot it's been this summer. I don't want things to melt. I don't want things to explode. Things like that. Those are the things that I pack in the car the morning of as I'm heading out, all of that. But the night before, it really makes a difference when you're doing a large scale drive like this, is everything that you can pack in the car overnight, do that so that there's less you have to do the next morning, as well as you're going to be not as physically tired, because it is exhausting loading all that stuff up into the car, especially because books are heavy. And so just all of that back and forth, lifting all those heavy things and arranging them in your car, and also just how long it takes to arrange everything in the car. For me, it is absolutely a game of Tetris, because I have so many bins that I use for all of my books, and then trying to fit everything in there with the luggage and the tables and the everything, it's a lot. So giving yourself the full day before you leave to be able to do all that Tetrising, figuring out where everything's going to go, makes it so much easier than trying to do all of that in a rush the morning of. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday is the day that we drive to our halfway point. And so that's important in the heading out, in that you can also utilize that on your social media, which I did, to announce, hey, I'm heading out to the event, follow my progress, yay, get people excited about you going to the event. I also like to post my progress so that people can keep track of where I am. It's also especially fun if it's a far drive, because then they can be like, oh, you're in my state now. Oh, you're in this city, whatever. People love that stuff. So whatever you want to advertise for your little trek there and your little trek back, a lot of times followers are appreciative and love seeing that journey. It's also a good safeguarding thing, because even regardless of social media and all that, I also text every time that I stop and my progress and all that to my parents, to my partner, to designated friends. That way they know where I am, and in case anything happens, they at least know the last place that I was, and based on the trajectory of my path, they can determine probably where I am. So it's really good to make sure, for safety's sake, that you do have at least one designated person that is not going with you, that's at home, whether that's your home or somewhere else, just a designated person that's not traveling, to be able to give them updates about where you are, that you're alive and you're fine and all that, or if you need help, so that they can help you with that, or find someone who can help you, or whatever. It's good to make sure you have those safety updates too. Figuring out where the halfway point is, that is definitely something that you want to plan in advance, because you also want to make sure you plan the hotel in advance, because it's going to cost less. You're going to have less competition that you have to deal with hotels being sold out for whatever reason, whether it's an event or whatever that's going on at the time. And also being able to have the time to sit down and really compare prices and all of that, so you're not just picking something at the last minute. And I'll give y'all an example with that. I saw a couple of authors that unfortunately had to deal with a really scary thing, in that the hotel that they had for their halfway point ended up being a really scary place. And they had to, at the last minute, find a hotel somewhere else, because there was no way they could stay in this place. Like, we're talking like there were like bullet holes in the windows, like that level of scary. And these were femme people, like should not be staying by themselves in a place like that. Just not safe, not good. And that's why it's so important to research that kind of stuff in advance, because you never know what could happen. You never know what situation you could be walking into. Always make sure that you check reviews, especially like check reviews that have photos of what stuff actually looks like and not what they're just trying to advertise. Check all that stuff, because going with the cheapest option typically is not the best option. Make sure that you prioritize your safety over the money, and if you can't afford it, just don't do it. Just do not do it. It is not worth your safety. So scheduling out those hotels and making sure that you have those halfway points is an important thing that you want to do in advance, so that once you're actually on the road, you're not worrying about that. It's already all taken care of. You know where you're going, and you're just going to check in, and it's going to be a whatever. And that's how it was for me. And then also with packing the car, it's also good to pack it in a way that the things that you need to take out of the car into the hotel are easy to access, so that you're not having to unpack everything and then repack everything, because that's just a crazy nightmare nobody needs to deal with. And I can tell y'all from experience, no one is going to steal your books out of your car. And if they do, more power to them, because goodness gracious, what is your life about? But like, I leave my books in the car. I leave my tables in the car. I leave the tablecloths in the car. Nobody cares about those things. Nobody wants those things. Don't leave your luggage in the car. Don't leave stuff sitting out that like is tempting or might look tempting. So I do have a couple of bags where it's like they're full of boring convention stuff that nobody wants. But the problem is the bags look fun. And so people only see the bags. They don't know what's in them, so they would be tempted to break into the car to get them. And so take anything out of your car that looks tempting. Leave the boring stuff in there. Nobody's going to take it. Nobody's going to take wire book frame displays, okay? Stuff like that. Like, don't drag everything into the hotel room with you if you don't have to. I certainly don't. And so that also makes everything more streamlined, that it's like, I know what's staying in the car, I know what I'm bringing in with me, and I have a whole breakdown for how I do it, the order that I do it in, to make sure that I'm safe, the car's safe, my stuff is safe, and so that it's just less crazy, less stressful, because when you get to that halfway point, a lot of times it's late at night and you've been driving literally all day. having that game plan for knowing what you're going to do before you do it, so that you're not just standing there staring at the trunk of your car like, and you're just brain dead from driving all day. Like, not a fun place to be. Make sure that you're actively sitting down and thinking about with how you've packed the car and what you're going to do. Like, okay, when I get to the hotel, I'm going to grab this stuff, and then I'm going to come back down and grab this stuff. This is the stuff I'm going to bring with me to check in at the front desk and go immediately up. Whatever have you. Make a plan. Make a plan, even if it's really, really simple. It doesn't have to be detailed. Just make sure you have some semblance of a plan when you get to your halfway point. Similarly, once you get to your hotel room at your halfway point, if you haven't already, plan this in advance. Sit down with the GPS once you're all combobulated and you have a minute to breathe. Sit down with your GPS so that you know what you're doing the next morning, and figure out where's the nearest gas station, where's the nearest food place, are there any other places that I need to go to before I head out. Like, maybe you realize coming into that halfway point hotel, oh no, I forgot my toothbrush. Oh no, I forgot shampoo. Oh no, I forgot whatever. And plan out, okay, well, there's this nearby store that I can go to and get these things that I need, whether it's a right now thing, whether it's a thing you're going to need tomorrow for the drive, or whether it's a thing you're going to need for the event. It's a good idea to plan that out the night before, so that then you're like, okay, I have a plan for what I'm going to do tomorrow, or I have a plan for what I'm going to do when I get to the event, and you can figure it out from there. The name of the game with doing these events that require all this driving, do not do anything at the last minute if you don't have to. And then driving to the event, having that plan. It's okay, I already planned out the night before. This is what we're doing. Get gas, get breakfast, get whatever essentials we need, and head out on the road again. And again, doing those checkpoints with your safe people, with social media, all that, so that people know where you are and how close you are to the event. Do that. And then when you finally roll up to the event, make sure that you are doing your best to, one, scope out a close parking spot. So that was a thing that I did. When I arrived at the Salem Hotel, there was an event going on that night. So the parking lot was really crowded when I first went in and checked in and took my first load of stuff out. But then when I came back down to take the second load out of my car, I saw that this event was over and all these people were leaving. So I sat in my car for another few minutes and waited for more people to leave. And then I drove to some closer parking spots that I scouted out. And I was able to park much closer, which made everything so much easier for loading in everything and the following stuff that I had to do when I was in Salem. Always also be aware, because situations can change quickly. Make sure you're doing that favor for yourself, where if you can, park as close as you can to the entrance, because at this point you're going to have to bring in everything. Because I can tell y'all, it is so much easier to bring literally everything out of the car the night before, or for me it was the night before. Bring everything out of your car and bring it up to your hotel room, so that then when you're able to do either early load in or day of load in, you're only bringing your stuff down from your room to the hotel proper for the event. You're not going outside back and forth to your car. It makes it so much easier. I highly recommend doing that. So Thursday when I got in, I brought everything out of the car into the hotel room, and it took me 5 trips of back and forth with all my stuff. And like, even the hotel staff, they were like, what are you doing? What? Why do you have all this stuff? And then I was like, I'm here for the author event. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. But they were just absolutely agog. They were just like, you are just back and forth so much. Oh my God. And being prepared for that too, because it's going to be a lot of back and forth with all your stuff. So be prepared for that. Be prepared with how you're going to handle the elevators and stuff, because I have a cart, which makes it a lot easier, but the heavier that cart is, the harder it is to turn. And that makes doing the elevators a pain, because then you have to figure out a way to literally spin it around so it's facing forward again when you get off the elevator. And that can be even more complicated if people want to get on the elevator with you, and that can be a whole nightmare. So I also try to ride the elevator alone, or with only like one other person if I can help it, so I have room to turn the cart around. So just even those kind of granular logistics and being aware of that kind of stuff will make it a lot less frustrating for you, is thinking about that these are things that are going to happen in advance, because having to learn this trial by fire is super stressful and scary, and you're going to turn into a person you don't want to be. And you never know if the person in the elevator watching you have a meltdown is another author, or God forbid, another reader. They're gonna be like, this person is crazy. I don't want to see them at the event, you know? So, and that's the other thing, is making sure you're on your best behavior at all times, because you never know who you run into could be a person at the event. So the entirety that you're at the location, make sure you're on your best behavior, because you might inadvertently run into people, because that happened to me then on Friday. Friday was my have fun tourist day for Salem. And for New Orleans, it was Friday and Saturday were my fun tourist days. So I was on my best behavior both days, because I could have at any point run into other people from the events, whether I knew it or not. And that did happen when I was in Salem. There were a lot of people who were out exploring Salem at the same time as me. And we didn't know each other, so there wasn't like a reaction in the moment. But then after the fact, when I'm at the event and I'm meeting people, people are like, oh my God, I saw you at the blah, blah, blah place. I saw you walking around. And so it's always important to just always be a certain level of on and make sure that you are using your best manners. And if you have to have a meltdown, do it somewhere private, because you never know who might be around to hear or see something. Big, big piece of advice that I've learned. And people aren't perfect and things happen, but if you can take that moment to take a breath, absolutely do that. And so then doing the actual event is, as I've talked about in all my other videos, a whole thing. And then doing the reverse of all that, going home. So doing loadout, driving to your halfway point, driving home, unloading your car, making sure that you're planning all this out along the way, sending your updates of where you are. Oh, I'm stopping to pee. Oh, I'm stopping to get lunch, you know, whatever. All of that stuff, just same thing in reverse. And then, of course, when you get home, the journey doesn't stop there. Not at all. It is officially a couple days after I came home from Salem. And so yesterday, I literally spent all day doing all of my catch-up stuff. I did all the laundry. Oh my God, y'all, just 800 loads of laundry, because convention laundry is a lot, especially because I'm a professional cosplayer. So like, those outfits are complicated. There's a lot of stuff that I have to take into consideration to make sure that everything is washed, sanitized, whatever, properly. It's a whole thing. I spent all day doing laundry and putting everything away where it goes, and making sure that I didn't forget anything, checking my banking account to make sure that I don't have any crazy charges, that I didn't get like double charged for the hotel or anything crazy like that. Make sure that like my information didn't get stolen and suddenly there's crazy charges on my card because I was somewhere else. All of that, having to check all of those things. That was what yesterday was all about, as well as a big thing people don't realize doing these events, coming home to all the emails and the DMs, because it's all of the stuff that you just you know, you're not dealing with while you're on the road and you're at the event. So all of that piles up. And then you get all the stuff from the event with people meeting you. So they send you DMs or they send you emails. They send you some sort of like contact, whether it's comments or whatever. Checking all that stuff and cleaning out your inbox and making sure that you've responded to everything accordingly in a reasonable amount of time. Did all of that yesterday. All of that was physically and mentally exhausting, even though I was mentally and physically exhausted from doing that trip. And taking care of all of that housekeeping stuff as close to when you get home as possible is so important. It is so important not to leave that stuff to languish and to just be like, oh, I'm just gonna do, you know, whatever, and I can worry about that later. Like, don't leave it for later, because it's just going to be the elephant in the room. It's going to stress you out. It's just going to pile up and get worse the longer you leave it. So I always have it where the day after, where it's like I've come home, I've had a food, I've had a sleep, I wake up the next day and I'm like, all right, this is going to suck. We're going to hate it the whole time. We're going to complain the whole time, as Neil says, but we're going to do it. And setting yourself up for the days that follow after that, it's so much easier. So today I was able to actually focus on, okay, we got all the housekeeping out of the way. We got all the boring, annoying stuff out of the way. Laundry is done. Things are unpacked and put away. Inboxes are clean. We have responded to all important DMs and comments and hoopla and all that. Nothing is on fire. Our bank account is as it should be. Everything is good. So that I could then today be like, okay, we have to do these tasks in order to start off our work week, even though it's already Thursday for me now, because I got home on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday was my get everything done day, and now Thursday it's okay, now we have to actually get back to work and do stuff. So then again, looking at my task list and being like, all right, what are the time sensitive things that it's like, hey, you need to get on this, you need to get this done. And today is recording content day. So that's what I've been doing all day, is recording this content for y'all so that then I have it all done. And then tomorrow I can move on to the next batch of tasks and projects that I need to start working on and all the things that I need to start prepping for. So planning out what you're going to do when you get back so that everything is done in a timely order is also going to make your life far less stressful, because people also don't realize that the event isn't done when the event is done. You still are going to have so much follow-up stuff you have to do after the event. People forget about that part. They think, oh, I just come home and it's done and yay, I'm done. No. No, you still have the post-convention stuff that you have to do. And honestly, a lot of that stuff is the stuff you don't want to do. You don't want to unload the car. You don't want to unpack your luggage. You don't want to do laundry. You don't want to answer emails. You don't want to do any of that not fun stuff. You want to sit and just be a vegetable, honestly. That's the thing that I personally would love to do, is just to sit here and blah and exist. But ain't nobody got time for that. Or schedule some time to be a vegetable and stare into the abyss, but then get moving and grooving after you've had your designated sit and exist time. Making sure that you also have this as an actual plan, an actual to-do list, and not just, oh, I'll just do it whenever, also gives you more motivation, as well as gives you a timeline so that suddenly it isn't a week later and there's still everything in suitcases and everything is just everywhere in your house is chaos, which then also consequently makes you full of chaos, which is bad. It's stress, it's bad. Nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. When I say these things, I am a neurodivergent person, and I absolutely understand issues with executive dysfunction and all the things that can stop you from doing the thing. All of that. I suffer from that as well. But setting yourself up with having a plan, having a clear task list, having a clear, okay, I need to do this, and then I need to do that, and this is dependent on me doing this, and blah, blah, blah. Planning all of that out will help you to override those things. There still will be things that you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be hard. Or your brain is just going to be like, sorry, we don't have the spoons to do that right now. But at least then you can be like, okay, I don't have the spoons to unpack my suitcase right now, which also means I don't have the spoons to do laundry right now. Okay, that's fair. Maybe you have the spoons to answer emails instead, and you can clear out your inbox while you're fighting your executive dysfunction of, we have to unpack stuff, we have to do laundry, we have to do that, so that you're at least still doing something. So that if you have that plan, you can just be like, this option is unavailable, what's the next item on the list I can work on instead until this option becomes available. Having all of that will help you continue the process to have it keep moving, even when your brain doesn't want to cooperate. So absolutely, having all of this stuff so that it's not just a fly by the seat of your pants is going to make the entire process so much easier and so much less stressful, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well you plan everything, it doesn't matter how well you execute everything, it is still going to be so stressful. So make sure that you also take that time for yourself to make sure that you have a proper food, that you hydrate, that you have a good sleep, all of that. You're home now. You can have access to all of those things. Make sure you give those things to yourself, because it's going to set you up to then do all of the post-convention stuff that you will need to do in the days that follow. Make sure you're being kind to yourself, make sure you're being kind to your body, so that then your brain can follow suit and have the spoons that it needs in order to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So I hope y'all found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. Alright y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.